So ladies and gentlemen, no intro for today's video. I'm just going to get right into it. I don't think this is going to take very long, but there are some things that I do want to talk about. About 2 weeks ago, Nintendo had a direct for their Switch 2, and I think that it went very well. Immediately after, there was a tsunami of lies, exaggerations, manufactured stories, clickbait, outrage. I mean, it was insane. You had people saying that the upgrades for, from the Switch 1 to Switch 2 were going to be $20, that the Switch 2 editions and the regular Nintendo games, that they were all going to be coming on this sort of like digital card, that you weren't going to be able to physically own your media anymore. I mean, there were so many lies and bits of misinformation that I had to post endlessly about stuff like this. Even though Nintendo, on the cover of each box, stated whether it was going to be a normal game, whether it was going to be a key card game, or whether it was going to be a game that you had to mostly download, which, by the way, happens with PlayStation and happens with Xbox. Indiana Jones was one of those games where you put it in. Star Wars Jedi Survivor and Jedi Fallen Order, those games were partially on the disc, and then you had to download the rest. So this is not something new, but this is not what Nintendo is doing. Nintendo, their main games are going to come physically on the disc, complete, total package. That includes the Switch 2. But there were so many content creators and so many people that were pushing this narrative because they were mad at Nintendo. It didn't matter the lie, as long as it hurt Nintendo. And that was frankly ridiculous. Well, we are seeing the last vestiges of that with this video from Young Yeah. Nintendo faced backlash after charging $90 for a complete version of an 8-year-old game. He's talking about Breath of the Wild. And in order to get to the $90 price point, he has to not only include the game, he has to also include the DLC. There's a $20 DLC for Breath of the Wild. So, if you want the complete version, you have to pay $90. And so, I want to watch a little bit of this, because it's so ridiculous. But before that, I just want to say one thing. People like this, what they tend to do is they hyper-focus on a problem, and they don't even bother to mention or suggest a solution. I do. In every video I've done about Nintendo's pricing, I've said if cost is a huge issue for you, if it's a huge issue for you, you want to buy Nintendo games, but you don't want to pay the premium price. Well, right now, you can go to eBay, and you can get, right now, this one's pre-owned. These two are pre-owned. That's $30. So right now, $44 for delivery. Free delivery, so $45. If you want to get the used ones, it's $40. You could get one for $30, $35. Look at the. I'd probably go for the $45 one because it's brand new. If you have Nintendo Switch Online Premium, you get the upgrade for free. So you could buy this for $45. You could put it in your Switch. You got NSO Premium. You get the upgrade for free. Now, you would have to pay for the DLC if you wanted that, but you'd be looking at about $65. $65. If you didn't have the NSO online, you'd be looking at about $75. You had to pay the $10 for the upgrade. $75 versus $90. Let's say you want a used version. right? Let's see, you look at this, you're like, okay, $40. My point here is that you can find these games on the market and either get the upgrade for free or pay the $10. So the idea that you're forced to do this, you're forced to pay $90, you have to pay $90, is just not true. All you have to do is use your brain. That's literally all you have to do. And I guarantee you can find a copy of Breath of the Wild for cheap that you can then upgrade for $10 or at no cost for the online premium. And you've got a brand new digitally enhanced version of Breath of the Wild. But more than that, and before we get into Young Yan's video, I want to pop over to HMK for a minute. Because this is something that Young Ye is going to omit. Because all of these content creators, they don't care about the truth. They're only interested in getting clicks and views, which generates not just money for them, but the perception of importance and relevance that they can then use to sell to people that they are more important than they actually are. So in this video, HMK actually goes over some of the features that are going to be included with The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. The new one for the Switch 2, and they're pretty amazing.
I don't see a lot of people talking about this. What is good, peeps? Zelda fans, Nintendo fans, it is your boy HMK once again. And with the advent of the Nintendo Switch 2 and the Nintendo Switch 2 editions of games, Zelda fans are going to be eating really well when it comes to the announcements of Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, which, by the way, is being claimed by Nintendo as being canonical, but more on that later in another video. But also, we are getting Nintendo Switch 2 editions of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, which are going to look better, run better, and play better. However, one crucial additional aspect of content that is being offered specifically to the Nintendo Switch 2 editions are Zelda Notes, a companion app integration for Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom that can assist in your adventure in trading items with homies and finding those fucking cool. One really cool, I mean super cool addition within Zelda Notes are voice memories. These memories are voice lines that are scattered all over Hyrule in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom that features Zelda, among other characters, talk and reveal interesting lore about the immediate location and its significance. And there is a lot, and I mean a lot of them. And the best part is that aside from being new lines and lore, as well as the fact that multiple characters besides Zelda have been confirmed to have lines, such as Master Koga, who by the way was only ever voiced in English in Age of Calamity, is the fact that they will be different between that of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, which you would think is a given off the bat, but I'm glad that's out of the way, as comparing and compiling all of this lore between the stories of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom is going to be insane. Think of it like voiced context to the story and worlds around you, potentially akin to that of From Software games. Playing these games over and hunting down all of these voice memories is going to be hella fun. And when you combine this with Age of Imprisonment, we are bound to get insane revelations and context that will flesh out these stories like never before.
So, do you start to see what I'm saying here? That the Switch 2 version is more than just a graphical and frame rate update, although it is that. Definitely. So people who have put their hands on the game have said that it's kind of unbelievable, the difference. But we're looking at this, and Nintendo has a whole bunch of spots that have new voice lines, new bits of dialogue between the two games. It seems like a lot of work. It seems like a lot of effort they've actually put into this. Which is more than I can say for for companies like, let me scroll up. Like this, The Last of Us Complete Edition for $100. The Last of Us. Oh man, that's so gross. Anyway, let's give this a watch.
Just when I think Nintendo can't get any greedier with the way they're handling the launch of the Nintendo Switch 2.
They haven't been greedy. No, I mean, some people can say, but they charge $10 more for certain games. That's not really greedy for me. I'll tell you what is greedy, because you mentioned it. This. This is pure greed. Nobody can get greedier than this. By the way, this doesn't have a disc version, so if you want a disc, you're going to be paying $80 plus tax. Oh, and it doesn't have a stand, so you're going to be paying for that too. So $700, you're going to be looking at $800 with tax, close to $900 for your console. Oh, and that doesn't include the $140 that it's going to take to get PlayStation Plus, PlayStation Plus, the online games. It's absolutely ridiculous to even breathe the word greed no, I'm just kidding. You can call Nintendo greedy. There are certain things that they're doing that you could definitely call out, but keep in mind, for a year for Nintendo Switch Premium, it's $50. It's $50 a year for Nintendo Switch Premium. And that's access to all of the retro games. All of them. For a year. $50. It's $140 for PlayStation. So I don't want to hear about how greedy Nintendo is. I don't want to hear about it. You can think it. You can think it, but it's like $499 for a copy of the Switch 2 that does have a dock. You don't have to buy it separately. It does have a drive. It does have a little cartridge slot. You don't have to buy the cartridge slot separately. But so for $550, I get the console, I get a game, and I get NSO for a year. You compare that to that, it's almost half the price. When you put it all together, it's unreal. The Nintendo Switch is less than 2/3 of the price of a PlayStation 5 Pro. It's unreal.
It all somehow gets worse. The major topic of contention surrounding Switch 2 is price point for games. So games like Mario Kart World are going to be $80. Switch 1 games that are receiving a Switch 2 edition, those are going to go from anywhere between $70 and $80. But somehow Nintendo has decided to make that aspect even worse with the way they're handling releases like The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild Switch 2 edition. Recall that during the Nintendo Direct, there was no information in regards to price point. They talked about the release date, the fact that upgrade packs will be sold separately, and also that there will be Switch 2 editions that include the upgrade packs, but nothing in regards to price point. And that's something that I found incredibly suspicious. Anytime a company doesn't disclose information like this, it means that they know backlash will be generated. And that is indeed what happened when people found out about the price point of games, how accessories will be more expensive, so on and so forth. But with Zelda Breath of the Wild, it gets that much worse. This is an 8-year-old game. It came out all the way back in 2017. And the general consensus is, as the game gets older and older, there should be some semblance of price depreciation. Or if you're going to re-release it, you should essentially, if you're going to release it at that MSRP that you'd associate with the base price of a AAA game, then you should add extra incentives to kind of breathe new life into the package. And so The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild Switch 2 edition will retail for $70. That's already $10 more than the original release. What is it getting for that? Well, it is getting enhancements in terms of graphics and performance and load times. So it'll be a better looking and better running game, but many would argue that an update like that should just be free.
Well, they can argue that all they want. I think that $10 is a reasonable price for an upgrade. I think $10 is a reasonable price to upgrade to what we're getting. And by the way, they treat Nintendo like it's Sony. Like, we already went over with HMK that there are going to be additions. There are going to be additions beyond just the price. You know, there are going to be additions beyond just the graphics. Like, they're actually putting in some effort to make it value for money, and they get zero credit for it, and they get shit on and called the greediest company in the world. I'm just pointing out the obvious here. That if you really want a greedy company, you look at Microsoft and you look at Sony. You don't look at Nintendo. They charge $10 extra for a game. There are no battle passes or microtransactions with Mario Kart World the way that there would be if it were EA or Ubisoft. Let's stop pretending that Nintendo is the worst of them by any stretch of the imagination. This is just a ridiculous spectacle. And honestly, I think that it degrades the credibility of the gaming content creator community by playing into this LARP because some people don't like Nintendo.
Furthermore, it's getting this Zelda Notes app feature that essentially serves as a note-taking / like GPS app for Breath of the Wild. That's kind of neat, but does it justify a full $10 increase from the base MSRP of $60? Hell no, many would argue. But then
just say that that's what you believe. Like, many would argue that it's not worth it. Well, then don't buy it. It's like this. Many would argue that, but many would be wrong.
something else that people didn't initially consider and then later went, wait a minute, what about this? Was in regards to the Zelda Breath of the Wild expansion pass. You may recall that this is a game that got some DLC, and the cost of the expansion pass was $20. Included in this expansion pass were features and content such as a harder difficulty mode, more...
See, here's what I would have done, and I know that some people won't like this. I wouldn't have included it with the game. I would have put it for free in the Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pass for the Switch 2. That's what I would have done. I would have had it for free in the expansion pass. So, if you have a regular copy of Breath of the Wild, you can put it in your Switch 2 and download the upgrade for free and download the DLC for free. That's what I would have done. Value for money.
More gear, additional side quests, new story missions, and, you know, the freaking motorcycle you get at the end of the big campaign edition that they made. It's pretty substantial stuff that make a great addition to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And the general expectation, the general consensus is if you're going to re-release a game like Breath of the Wild 8 years later, then the DLC should be packaged in almost like, you know, an ultimate edition of a game. And you'd hope that Nintendo, at the very least, if they're going to upcharge for an 8-year-old game, they would at least do that. But News Outlet IGN recently reported that this will not be the case. They confirmed with Nintendo that The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild Nintendo Switch 2 edition does not include The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild expansion pass DLC. That DLC is available as a separate purchase. So what that means, ladies and gentlemen, is if you effectively want the full Breath of the Wild experience on the Nintendo Switch 2, you'll be shelling out a whopping $90, which is effectively not only the most expensive AAA game that has been released, it's...
Like, imagine being so dishonest that you're calling a game and a separate DLC one thing and classifying it as the most expensive game. The expansion is separate. The expansion is separate. You can buy Breath of the Wild elsewhere. You can buy it elsewhere. I understand what he's trying to do here. He's trying to take a brand new copy. Like, you don't have Breath of the Wild. A brand new copy and the upgrade and and the expansion pass, $90. I get it. But it's not one complete game. They're not selling a $90 game. It's a $70 game with an upgrade, with the notes feature, with the voices feature, with the new lore. And then if you want to, you can get the upgrade for $20.
It's also an 8-year-old game that started at an MSRP of $60, and that price point has gone up to $90. Now, you could
Yeah, $60 and plus 10.
argue that original Breath of the Wild owners did have to pay that extra $20, so they
Right.
shelled out a total of $80 to play the game on the Switch 1. But there's, again, a general consensus that over time, a game's value does depreciate, essentially allowing more access, more accessibility from a price point standpoint to folks who have not played the game yet, which is why companies do re-releases that include, all of the DLC that have come out for the game without, boosting the price point to a ridiculous degree, keeping it at a base MSRP release. There's a general agreement that the advantage of being early adopters is that you get to play the games early, but you may end up paying more in the long run, whereas those who wait years until the game sees some kind of re-release might get a better deal, might get better value, because they'll get a package that's just more comprehensive that still retains the base price point for AAA games. But not so with The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. The universal consensus is if they're going to do a Switch 2 edition for an 8-year-old game, and if you're going to up the price point, at the very least, you include all of the content, all of the DLC in one package. This is the equivalent of if Bethesda released Skyrim Special Edition, which is essentially a Skyrim re-release, but did not include all of the DLC and made you pay separately for them, just like people did when the game originally launched and those DLCs originally launched. Imagine the uproar. This is what Breath of the Wild is effectively doing with their Switch 2 re-release. Now, in part, this should come as no surprise because Nintendo is not known to depreciate the value of their games or to have their games go on sale, but it doesn't change the fact that other companies have set the bar in terms of how to do re-releases and make those re-releases have a bit more value and justify releasing them at a base price point instead of releasing them at a lower price point given the age of those games. All of this looks especially bad when you put it alongside another Switch to release, Cyberpunk 2077 Ultimate Edition, which is detailed right here on the official Cyberpunk website. And right here you can see that this is a package that includes both the base game and its spy thriller expansion Phantom Liberty, available together in one Ultimate package. CD Projekt confirmed to news outlets and reporters like Jason Schreier that the Switch 2 version of Cyberpunk 2077 will be $70, which is the base price point of that game. They're not increasing the game to $80 price point, base MSRP, and they're not charging extra for the DLC, which originally launched at a price point of $30. Over time, they've decided,
And that's great. I think that they should be able to do that as a company if they want to do that. Nintendo isn't doing that, and they're not known for doing that. And you know what? While I would agree with you that I think that they should, I'm not going to cut off my nose to spite my face. I'm not going to take this approach like this is some principled stand. There are many games that come out and don't incorporate the DLC into everything that they do. In fact, a lot of the games that we see do battle passes and things, and they never just bundle it all together at the end. I mean, very rarely. So my point is, he's not wrong about wanting the DLC included. I'd agree with that. But I mean, like, the way that this is worded, the way that it's framed, no solutions, no real thought behind it. You just have to be a drone and go buy the game unthinkingly. It's just, no, you get it online, you get it at a discount, and you get all the stuff at a reasonable price. You just have to think smarter. It's just, some people won't like that answer, but you know what? It doesn't matter. These content creators, they always have these terrible takes. And if I have to be the one person to be the contrast to that, so be it. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.